Personal data is absolutely everywhere now, and it is hugely valuable. And the General Data Protection Regulation is largely a byproduct of this massive increase in processing capability that we now see all amongst us. It's really not that long ago that, as you can see here, a 5 megabit hard drive was actually you needed a forklift in order to actually put it up onto a plane. That's an IBM 5 megabit hard drive, where a 5 gigabyte USB stick really fits neatly in our pocket these days. And most people generally accept that we've got this massive technology advancement. But what sometimes escapes people is that the rate of change is actually increasing. The two photos there were taken 8 years apart, and the last two popes who were presented out in front of the Vatican. I think the difference is pretty obvious. But where do we actually go from here? Well, we've all quite accustomed with smartphones, smartwatches. Technology is pretty much in our shirts, in our cars, in our homes. It's going to be absolutely everywhere. And Ireland is very much at the center of this. We have, as the IDA always likes to remind us, 29 out of the top technology companies in the world are actually based here, which means that we're actually responsible for processing billions of people's personal data. So we're in the eye of the storm, which leads us to the GDPR. Who has heard of the GDPR? Hands up. Everyone in the room. So this is what's coming into effect on the 25th of May next year, and it does affect everyone who processes personal data. But people who are familiar with data protection will be also familiar with the language that's in the GDPR. The principles of the GDPR are still very much the same. We still have to make sure that we capture information fairly, we use it for a specific purpose, we actually minimize the amount of data we need for the purposes that we actually have got it. We have to keep our eye on data quality, making sure that it is accurate, up to date, fit for purpose. And of course, we need to destroy it when we no longer have a need for that data. And not second last, in terms of security of the data, we need to make sure that we keep it safe and secure. But the single biggest change with respect to data protection is actually the final principle of the GDPR, which is to do with accountability. This is the biggest change, and it is a massive change. Currently, we're in an environment where if you have a breach, basically the Commissioner's Office may investigate you, they may issue a findings exercise, they may issue a fine. With the GDPR, they're going to ask you to demonstrate and prove compliance. You'll see a lot of media attention to GDPR issuing about fines, issuing about other aspects of it. But the single thing that you want to take out of this is that you are now accountable, that you have to demonstrate compliance. And the GDPR, 99 articles long, over 30 of them actually say something about how you should go about this. It introduces a whole lot of new terms: privacy by design, privacy by default, privacy impact assessments, the role of the data protection officer, and admittedly, it does get quite confusing. If this is giving you a bit of a headache, you're in good company. Most organizations, generally speaking, are struggling to come to grips with how they actually need to get their hands around this new regulation. But there is hope. There is commonality in terms of where we see organizations doing this well. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of these, but there are two things. One, you should have the right tools to do the job. It's very, very hard doing this on just paper or on Word docs or on Excel. Having tools to do the job is a must-have, but also having the organizational structure. And that leads us to where the opportunities are. Most organizations will need a data protection officer. At the very least, they need data protection champions. There is currently, the latest numbers place the deficit in Europe at about 70,000 in terms of the deficit between qualified DPOs and the need. So this is a massive opportunity. And what does a good data protection officer look like? Very helpful for them to understand the regulations. It's also helpful for them to understand the IT considerations. But it's critical that they're very, very strong communicators, as obvious as that may sound. It's not just about putting out fires. They will have to deal at board level in communicating why this is important, as well as frontline staff. And the tasks that they do, how they actually go about doing this, should be a logical and sequential way of doing it. For starters, it's a risk-based regulation. So you will need to start capturing the risks from a HR perspective. And look at this in terms of a life cycle point of view. Where is my data? Where am I capturing it? Everything from appraisals and interviews, sick notes, right down through to mover leaver policy. And doing that will put you in a good position where you can suddenly start to demonstrate you're compliant. So, the take-homes, you have to prove compliance, you have to demonstrate it. Yes, it's a challenge. There is no need to panic. There is a need for you to do something, but you may as well take advantage of the opportunity that's there while you're doing it as well. Thank you very much.